3 days after the takeover of Kabul, terrorists from the Taliban want to be seen as statesmen. They say they do not want any enemies. They say they do not want any revenge. They're talking about women's rights and assuring minorities their due place in the Afghan society. The Taliban want the world to believe that they have changed, but they haven't. And we'll show you why. In Kabul, they hold press conferences and speak to women reporters to prove that they've really evolved. But outside Kabul, they run their reign of terror. Let me show you some pictures from Jalalabad. Scores of people out on the streets. What for? To protest against the Taliban, to take down the Taliban flag, to unfurl the Afghan national flag. This is perhaps the first pushback against the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. Do you know how they responded? The Taliban, who apparently want no revenge, who promise safety for everyone, opened fire on their fellow Afghans. Clashes broke out, 3 people were killed, 12 others were hurt. The Taliban, wielding their guns, wanted to scare the people of Jalalabad into submission. It did not happen. The protesters managed to reach the city square. They took down the Taliban flag. They unfurled the red, green and black flag of Afghanistan. Look at this. Jalalabad was not an exception. Reports say such protests were seen in many provinces. As the top military powers of the world beat a shameful retreat, these defenseless people of Afghanistan are facing bullets to fight for their rights. What drives them? The lure of democracy, perhaps, and freedom. In the last 20 years, they've tasted it. They want to keep it. They also see through the lies of the Taliban. They know what a Taliban takeover really means, and their fears are legitimate. Across the country, shopkeepers are taking down photos of women outside their shops out of fear. Some are painting over advertisements. Why? Because these women, the women in these pictures, are not wearing a burqa. And their fate depends on the Taliban's interpretation of the Sharia law. How are the others faring? The Taliban are promising amnesty, asking government employees to return to work. At the same time, they're reportedly executing government workers. They're carrying out revenge killings. Going by one claim, government officials and captured soldiers are being targeted right outside Kabul. Even inside the capital, in fact, there are reports of executions now. A stranded British citizen has revealed this today. Members of the Taliban ransacked his home in Kabul. He says that people living on the same street were executed. There is talk of Islamic law and religious courts. A Taliban spokesperson has admitted that amputation, stoning and execution could soon return to Afghanistan. This is how they propose to rule. This is the real Taliban, make no mistake. In front of the global press, they promised a softer approach on Sharia. They talked about rights. But away from cameras, they've been firing bullets, executing people. They have grabbed power through violence. And now they want to rule by fear. What about the peace talks? What about the talks? There is a tentative revival of the political process, we are told. Mullah Baradar landed in Kabul. He's the co-founder of the Taliban. He escaped from Afghanistan 20 years ago when the United States began the war. Now he's back. 2 decades later, he returns to a Taliban victory in Afghanistan. A large crowd welcomed him at the airport, as you can see. Baradar was surrounded by his supporters, escorted by a fleet of white SUVs. There were fireworks too. A hero's welcome for a terrorist leader. What explains this grand welcome? Baradar's prospects. He could well be the next president of Afghanistan. This man has served as the Taliban's governor for several provinces. This was in the late 90s. When the Taliban were overthrown, Baradar left Afghanistan and divided his time between a Pakistani prison and a luxury hotel in Doha. What makes him the top contender for presidency? Number one, he's a known face around the world. In recent years, Baradar has been the face of all the negotiations in Qatar. He was also the man who went to China to meet the foreign minister. And reason number two, he controls the Taliban. Even after staying away from Afghanistan for 20 years, he maintains a strong influence on these people. And this puts him in a unique position to consolidate power in Kabul. The Taliban have not shared very much about their plans to install a government. But we can tell you that they're engaging with some familiar politicians. Former Afghan President Hamid Karzai and Abdullah have held several rounds of talks with the Taliban. This morning, both leaders met with the senior leader of the Haqqani network. So efforts are underway to find what may look like a political solution. But it will not be a solution, it will be rather a solution dictated by the Taliban. It will be on their terms. What about the former president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani? Where is he? What is he doing? He's right now in the UAE. A statement was released by Abu Dhabi earlier today. It says that they will host Ashraf Ghani and his family on quote-unquote humanitarian grounds. Remember, this man abandoned his people and reportedly fled with millions of dollars. Back in Kabul, thousands are still looking for a way to escape from the Taliban's rule. No such luck for them. The Kabul airport remains crowded. The flights have resumed, but thousands of Afghans still cannot get on a plane. Even those who do sometimes don't make it. I'm sure you remember these pictures. Afghans falling from the skies. They clung onto a military aircraft when it took off. The plane was carrying hundreds of Afghans, but some couldn't get in. They clung onto it and fell as it took off. This plane belonged to the US Air Force. That did not comment on the tragedy for a full 2 days. Well, now they've spoken, and here's what they say. They found body parts stuck to the plane, human body parts stuck to this plane. They don't know how many people died in this episode. They're still conducting what they call an investigation. This is just another tragedy that tells the story of the Afghan people today, unable to escape, unable to survive at home. Afghanistan's currency, called the Afghani, has dropped to a record low. The country is reportedly desperately short of dollars. Most of Afghanistan's currency reserves are held in foreign accounts. The Taliban cannot access it. The West has cut off the Taliban from the global economy, but it's the people of Afghanistan who will suffer. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.